Everybody, welcome to our fireside chat with Nootsie, who I think most of you have come across in her testimonial that I shared in the group earlier. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really, really excited to talk to you, partly because of the conversation we had before. It's just beautiful to speak to somebody who's talking about God and connection to source without feeling embarrassed or, oh, this is a bit weird or this is a bit off, and they just love talking about it, and it shines through when you were speaking to me earlier on. So I'm really, really excited for today. What I would really love is thank you. I would really, really like for you to share your spiritual journey before you came to Dr. Joe, and then we'll get to your testimonial part, and then we can go forward from there. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
Brilliant.
So I grew up in a little town in Nebraska with German parents. And I went to an Episcopal church where really the most I knew about God was the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And that was a move of God in my life. But I always had that bend of, being very intrigued by a source greater than myself. And it wasn't until I became an adult and I went through a really bad breakup. I was living in North Carolina. I went through a really bad breakup. It was bad. And I decided that I saw this minister on TV that he fasted for 7 days and he read the Bible and for 7 days. So I thought, well, I'm going to fast for 7 days, but I'm going to read the Bible 7 times in 7 days. Wow. And so that blew the lid off of my life. And, when you do that, when you get up in the morning and you read the Bible from beginning to end, you see these patterns and you see these truths, and that just lit me on fire for getting to know who God was. It stoked a fire in me. The unfortunate part is I ended up in Tulsa. I was working at a Christian university, and I saw behind the curtain, and I saw the ugliest of the ugly. I saw the good, the bad, and a lot of the ugly. And so I had a TV program there where I taught aerobics 5 days a week, and I sold the last segment of it, and I interviewed people, and I had a really big following, but I had a situation with the head ministers over that ministry. And so I had to leave, and I just kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. I was like, if that's what God looks like, I don't want it. And it's not that I didn't believe in God, but I just didn't want my relationship with the divine to look like what that looked like. And so I was just kind of doing my own thing. I wasn't going to church, and, always a seeker, but I didn't really, classify myself as a Christian. And then I got really ill. I was really, really ill. I had a complete metabolic breakdown. I was severely constipated. I wouldn't go to the bathroom at all. I would take tons of laxatives. I would try everything that I could possibly think of, and it wouldn't work. I didn't even have gas. Like when I would fill a gas bottle, I'd be like, yay, there's something moving in there. And so it got to where I just couldn't eat. If I ate a crouton, my stomach hurt. And so I would go, weeks without eating. And then when I would finally be so hungry that I would eat something, that would be the only time I wouldn't break out in a rash or go into anaphylaxis. And I went to so many doctors, and I was thin shamed. I was accused of being a drug seeking whore. Basically, this one lady called me a drug seeking whore. And because I wasn't eating and I wasn't sleeping very well, I started to like have some mystical experiences. I would call them, I didn't know what to call them at the time. And the first one that I had is I would hang my robe on the door and I'd just say, God, if you want me to get up and, meditate, because I kept hearing the word meditate. I didn't know Dr. Joe at the time. I'll get up and meditate. So I would wake up in the middle of the night. I would put my robe on. I would go out in the living room, and I only knew the Christian version of meditation. So I would just put my head in the carpet. And the first dream vision that I had, my mom and my Oma, who both passed away, came to me. They were like, Nootsie, it's time for you to cut this jewelry off. And I looked down, and what I thought were pearls on was really a barbed wire fence with what I thought was pearls. It was like rocks, and it was around my wrist and it was around my neck. And I cried because I don't know why I cry, but so my mom and my Oma started to cut it off me. And they were just like, it doesn't serve you anymore. And my husband's mother and Oma were also from Germany, and they were standing a way off, and they were cheering me on as my mom and my Oma were taking this off. And then the next thing that happened, even though my husband was in the bedroom snoring, his spirit man got up out of his body and walked in. He had this Waterford decanter of gold. And he said, God has this decanter of gold for you, and you're supposed to drink it. And I drank it. And when I went to sleep, or when I was down having that vision, I was down on the ground. When I woke up, I was sitting on the couch where I was sitting when my mom and my Oma visited, and my face was just wet. And so I was like, whoa, that is like pretty freaky. And so that's when I started to go on the hunt for meditation. And that's when I ran smack dab into Dr. Joe. And, I told my husband, I said, I don't know if my poor little body can make it much longer. I don't, like if I check out, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get healed, but nothing is working. And, so that's, when I went to Dr. Joe's event in Niagara Falls, it was a lot for me because I had to do an enema every day in order to even have a bowel movement. I couldn't eat hardly anything. So I couldn't have a roommate because nobody wants to be with the enema girl in a room. And so my husband was all for it. So I go to the Dr. Joe event, and that's when the further opening of my spirit, soul, and body began to happen. So do you want me to go into what happened to me there, or what would you like?
Yeah. Go for it.
So the first 3 days, I was just like, this is terrible. I hate it. Like when I would close my eyes to meditate, even though I had done the progressive and the online, I would close my eyes and it felt like something was throwing rocks at my eyes because I was in such fight, flight, or freeze. And I couldn't shut my mind down. And it was a lot of people. And when you do the kaleidoscope meditation, I had gotten my eye putting on and off cattywampus. So when everybody had their eye thing on, I had mine off. And when people had theirs off, I had mine on. So, there was no kaleidoscope. I had my eye mask off, and I look up and there is a fractal like way off to my right. And I was like, I didn't even really know that fractals were like living beings. And it was looking at me, and I was looking at it, and I knew it was coming for me. And I was like, oh dear Jesus. And it was in the form of a heart or a cross, but it was beating like a heart. It was going bunk, 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 bunk. And I was like, whoa. And it backed up, and I knew that it was going to come at me, and it came at me at the speed of light, and it blew up my heart, and my heart shattered into a million pieces. And I just was like, what it did is it kind of restored my faith and hope and love of who I believe Jesus to be, even though I saw all this ugly stuff. And so like, it just blew my heart open, and it kind of opened me back up to what I classified as my first love, even though it was different. And then I think the next event that we had was we did the walking meditation. I think that was, no, we did the day and no time, and we meditated like for 9 hours that day. I didn't even get up to go to the bathroom because I just didn't want to miss anything, but I suffered the entire 9 hours. I was like, I hate this. I don't like Dr. Joe. I don't like his voice. I want to go home, and so, but I did it. So the next day we did our walking meditation somewhere, something like this. And, I just was stomping and crying, and I just really was feeling it. And I kept thinking of the story in the Bible where the woman who had the issue of blood was in the crowd, and she was crawling on her hands and knees because she'd been bleeding for 12 years. And she said, if I can touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. And I thought, if I could just connect into the void, like if I could just make that connection. And so we're doing the walking meditation, and all of a sudden I become very aware of the coiled snake in my first center, like in my female organs. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, so I don't even believe in this. I thought it was a metaphorical snake. And I literally feel the snake doing like this. And I would say orgasmic is not the right word, but it was arousing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm around all these people and I have this snake coiled in my first center. And so I went off by a cement and dumpster enclosure, and I was on the back side of it, and I had my hands on my knees, and I was trying with every ounce of my being, my willpower, my physiology, to stop whatever this coiled snake was from rising. But it'd be like, me standing in front of a freight train and trying to stop it. And so the only way that I can explain it is it was in my first center, and there was a door between my first, my second center, and it blew that open. And my second center, my colon, like I was like, like, oh, my colon. And then there was a door between my second and my third, and it blew open, and they just kept blowing open until it came out the top of my head. And I was dancing, and I was having a hootenanny. I was just like, my earbuds came off, my jewelry came off, my jacket came off, my shoes came untied. And that music is so motivating. And everybody had left, and I was like the only one left marching around this, Niagara Falls Park by myself. And so I compose myself, and I'm starting to walk back, and I see a Niagara Falls State Park worker. And I was like, you are so beautiful. Can I give you a hug? Like, I was just hugging everybody and anything and touching trees, and like something really had changed in me. I mean, I didn't really even know that what a Kundalini awakening was, or what the snake was, but what I experienced was a freight train of energy. And, I liken it to how there's a light bulb and there's filaments in it, like the little filaments in it. My filament was totally burned up, and I was given new filament, is the best way that I can describe it. So I was one of those halogen curly light bulbs, and I ended up like this kind of light bulb with all these filaments in it. And I was lit up like a firefly, like I was on fire. And so I think the next thing that happened to me there, it was, I wanted to have a healing, but I thought, well, there's a friend of mine, like he's had all these health problems. If I get a healing, I'm going to give it to him. And so the day before, it was Saturday, and I didn't know, but I got the coin on Sunday. So on Saturday, I got the coin on Saturday. And so I was like, well, Dr. Joe says, if you want the mystical to happen, if you're hungry and you're sleepy, that's when it can happen. So I'm like, okay, bright idea. I'm not going to eat and I'm not going to sleep because I know that I want to have a healing. And so Saturday night, I barely slept. I didn't eat. And right before I woke up, my dad, who passed away in 2008, was standing beside my bed, and he called me Poopsie, and he said, Poopsie, if I had known what happened to you, which, I found out I was molested from 4 to 9, he said, I would have stopped it and I would have protected you, but I didn't know. And I was like, Dad, it's okay. Like, I'm fine. I've forgiven everybody. And I know you would have protected me. And he was like, well, your mom and I are orchestrating your healing. And he gave me a hug, and I cried, and he cried. So Sunday, when you walk in the door, I got a healing or a wholeness coin. And then someone else gave me a wholeness coin. And then the coin that they gave me for healing was wholeness. So I was like, okay, I meant to get it. And my friend, he got his own coin. And I was just like, oh, that I'd heard about these blue beings. And I kind of just had this looming feeling like I was going to have an interaction with these blue beings. And so we go in to that room, and I think I might have mentioned there was one of the girls in our group the day before said, I had this cool vision of you, and you were standing there and you just had white roses all around your head. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever, that's nice. And so when we get into the healing room, there's white rose petals just all over the floor. And so then I immediately, like, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy, I'm constipated, I'm blown open, like I just was like, and I'm kind of all shaky. And so they lay you down, and Dr. Joe's voice comes over, and he kind of prepares you and talks to you. Well, my body started like bouncing like a basketball. Like I know partly it was adrenaline and partly it was sleep and hunger and all these things. And I just was like, I knew something was going to happen. So we go out in there, and they have the 8 people around you. And, he talks you through all this stuff, and all of a sudden I see this curtain, like this gold iridescent kind of see-through curtain that has diamond flecks all in it. And, like my eyes were probably as big as saucers, and I see these blue hands come out. And I was like, I said to myself, is it because I'm afraid? And I knew the answer was yes. So I was just like, I surrender. So these beings come out from behind this curtain, and they're super tall. Like, they're so tall. They picked me up like a rag doll, like by my one ankle. And like all of this energy started to fall out of me like coins out of my pocket. And they kind of were shaking me around. And then I haven't told this part, but it was almost like I was sitting on a gynecological table because my feet were up in the air like this. And they began to pull what looked like black intestines out of my first center. And I was like, are you kidding me? You're going to pull that out of me here? And I'm like, this is going to scare these people half to death. And they're like, they're fine. Their eyes are closed. And they just kept pulling and kept pulling. And I was screaming. I was one of those people that I didn't like in the beginning. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, ow, ow, ah. I'm like, I can't even believe this is coming out of me. And there were several people that peeked, like when you're supposed to have your eyes closed when you're doing that, were several people that were peeked, and they were like, you look like you were, it was a mixture between breakdancing and The Exorcist. I mean, I was on this side, I was on that side, I was back. And so then they said, they threw me on my right hip, and they took this, like, it looked like a stick, this shunt, and they were jabbing it into my kidneys. And I was like, ow, what are you doing? That hurts. And they're like, your kidneys function slow. So then they threw me on the other side. They took care of the other side. I had an encapsulated toe joint that I forgot about. And they were like, point your toe really hard. And I pointed my toe. And at that moment, my whole foot went to the side like that. And one of the girls said it looked like my ankle was going to break, and it felt like it. And that energy that was in my toe joint went up into my calf, and they grabbed it out. And so then after that, it was over. I asked this one woman to hold me, and I had another additional aspect of my healing where, I went back to when I was in my mother's womb, and didn't know this, but my dad had beat my mom up when she was 7 months pregnant with me. And I knew what was happening when I was in my mother's womb. And then I went, up into the present day. I think I was 54, 55 at that time. And I saw things along the way that had added to the narrative and the construct of me being sick and wounded. And so, I come home, I've had this major healing. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate, and it was really, really rough. It was rough, but I just, I didn't want to lose the openness that I had. So I continued to do lots of meditations, lots of breath work till I went to the advanced follow-up in Munich and had a few more healings there. And, so now I've been on this journey since 2019, and I haven't really missed a day of breath work and meditation of some sort since then.
So before we go on, does anybody have any questions with that first sort of chunk?
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
Amazing story, Nootsie. Thank you for sharing. Incredible.
My pleasure.
So that was you're up to now the advanced retreat. How has your health been since it all everything's still clear? Everything's still.
Well, no, not actually. So it got extracted on an energetic level when I went in 2019. But last summer I found out through divine intervention, I had a liver fluke, and
Okay.
it was in my gallbladder ducts. And I had to deal with the things that were hidden in my physiology. And so it was pretty extreme. I didn't do any kind of traditional medicine. I went after it through breath work and forgiving and taking an inventory of, the narrative and the construct of what I believed, not about God, because a lot of that had been rectified, but what I believed about myself. And when you have been molested or violated or a victim of any kind, and you go to someone and you try to tell them what happens to you, and they tell you to shut up or stop troublemaking or whatever, then you don't like the sound of your own voice. And even though that had been healed, I still had this aspect of my personality that was chameleon-like. And whoever I was around, I would talk like they talked. So if someone wasn't comfortable with, me saying God, then I wouldn't say God around them. Or if somebody, was liked rock and roll music, I would be more like a rock and roll girl. And so there was a lack of authenticity. Even when I look back on some of my videos, I'm like, oh my, I wasn't talking in my own voice. And I think this liver fluke, they can stay in your body for 25 years. The reason it had rights to stay in my physiology is because there wasn't an authenticity all the way through. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but, I had to look at who I was in that moment and who my future self was. And I had to fuse those two together.
Okay. So we've got a question about the breath work, but before we go on to that, you've done the liver fluke, you've sorted that out. Now, what is your day like on a day-to-day basis in terms of the work, whatever the work means to you? And we discussed what we do 23 hours of the day when we're not meditating. and you gave some beautiful examples of your morning walk. Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah. So one of the things when I came back and I was blown wide open, I started to get communications from things that were very unexpected, and like trees and plants and elementals, and and it was what I call my deconstruction. It was part of my deconstruction, because I very much like to hang on to rules and regulations and regimented and rights and wrongs and good and bad. And so, because I had the snake and I had the blue beings and I had travel, and I really was working with myself to be open to whatever the divine wanted me to experience. And so I was telling of the experience. I was sitting in the backyard and I was putting my feet in the ground, trying to ground myself. And this like leprechaun looking Nomi kind of Irish guy with big feet and overalls on. He had one side of his overalls down, and he had a purple and white seersucker kind of shirt on, and his feet were hairy. He jumped over my back fence, and I was like, I kind of went like, hey, how you doing? He was like, hey, how you doing? And he went behind me, and he was working in these shamrock plants that I had. And I was like, ooh, and then I went in and I watered my plants, and I was down in the front yard, and I heard one of my plants say, you forgot me. And I was like, are you kidding me? You're like, like, are you kidding me? So I came upstairs, and sure enough, I had forgotten the plant, this one plant. And so what was being shown to me is that there's a saying that says all creation, everything that is created in the cosmos, is cheering and believing and anticipating the manifestation of the sons and daughters of God. And so what became very, very apparent to me is that, everything has consciousness in it. I mean, it's the very fact that it's created, whether it be a bird, a worm, a mountain, a rock, a plant, whatever it is, it has consciousness in it. And when we connect with that, it animates even further. We can have an exchange of energy. The Schumann resonance, I think Earth is like 500 or whatever. So I still get up before the sun rises, and I go to the bathroom. I don't put my contacts in. I don't brush my teeth. I don't comb my hair. I put my clothes on the dining room table, turn off the alarm, and I go out and I practice not thinking. And I just observe, because I heard this study where they put crickets in with flowers, and then they put flowers without crickets, and the flowers that had the crickets, because of the vibration of them rubbing their feet together, they bloomed like 50 some odd % more than the ones that didn't have the crickets. And the same thing with birds, the bird's song, faith is the songbird singing way before the dawn. And I would just go out and I'd be like, I want to be the songbird, like I'm going to serenade the sun rising. And so I go out still every morning, rain or shine, and I practice not thinking, and I'll say hello to the birds, and I'll thank the crickets for making my heart bloom. And if there's one tree that is, more than any other tree waving in the wind, I wave back, because I know when I notice it, there's an exchange of energy, and I know that raises my vibration. And then I give back to them. I give carbon dioxide back to them, and they give oxygen to me. So I start every one of my days like that, and I end every one of my days like that. So I go out usually 30 to 40 minutes in the morning and 30 to 40 minutes at night. And I try my hardest not to think, because I was talking about how, how like when we're in beta, can you see that okay? When we're in beta, our brain waves are all over the place. We're just thinking and working things out and worrying and, problem solving. Well, God showed me that when that is like that, we can't get divine guidance in very easy. So if I would slow my brain waves down and let them be like this and not think, then things could drop down and I would get insights and inspiration and connection and higher vibration. And so that's how I start my day. And then I set an alarm on my phone, and it goes off at random times during the day, different times, like, 9 o'clock, 11:11, 1:11, 3:33, 4:33, 12:34. Every day it's different. And it says on there when the alarm goes off, stop, drop, and roll. Because after I was interacting with these blue beings, I really feel like they knock the shit out of you. Excuse my language. They will heal you and knock the shit out of you, but they're not there to fluff you up. They're there to do a job. They're funny. They're to the point. They don't mince words. And so after that, they transitioned into these beings of light, and they are just beings, humanoid beings. I don't know if they're humans that have passed on. I have my own theory, but they wear white robes, and they started interacting with me, and they would be standing on this platform, and I would see this like strand of DNA, light DNA, and it would unfurl, and it would become this ladder, and I would climb up, and I would be on this bridge of light, and they would show me things, and they said, stop, drop, and roll. And I was like, that's kind of funny, because that's when I was in grade school, they said, if you ever catch on fire, stop, drop to the ground, and roll to put the fire out. And I'm like, why? Because I'm on fire? And they were like, kind of, your thinking is, you got to slow your thinking down. So I set this alarm on my phone, and when it goes off, I just put my hand on my heart, and I do just a little bit of a heart brain coherence breath. And then I, just try to access higher states of consciousness. And then, I forgot, before I go out and do my walking meditation, I do walk as my future self. I try not to think. I do breath work. I do Tumo breath. I do Wim Hof. I do that first. I lay down on the ground, and I rub my belly from the right side to the left and up in a circle, because, I got to keep my colon flowing. So I do the Wim Hof breath, and I rub my belly, and then I sit up, and I do the Tumo fire in the belly breath. And then I meditate. I do stop, drop, and roll. And then I end my day in gratitude, little thought, and walking as my future self.
So we have a question here. What is your theory about those beings?
I've traveled through a lot of different portals since my first experience, and our microbiome, not only do we have 1 trillion strands of bacteria in an intimate balance inside our body, but we have, a microbiome outside of our body. And 84% of that is the outside microbiome is alien DNA, which it's not human. It's not alien like in, aliens, but it's like alien DNA. And I believe as below, so above. And so I think we're a universe in small form. And just like we are teaming with life, I believe the universe, the earth, the cosmos is teaming with life. And I believe some of them are dimensional and some of them are not dimensional. I happen to believe the blue beings, as they worked with me when I first came home, I really think they're healing beings. I think that, they have a job to do, and they did their job. And then, they're the physical healing, not the only one, but an order of healers that come to heal you. And then after I had the physical part of it, the beings of light were more my soul and my emotional beings.
And do you come across these beings when you're meditating, or can it just occur at any point, any time?
In the beginning, I did so much breath work. I probably do more breath work than I do meditation.
Right.
And so when I do breath work, when I do fire in the belly breath, you know how Dr. Joe does the clamp down 2, 3, 4. I breathe in and out, and then I breathe in, and then I just clamp down as hard as I can, all at one time. I make an ugly face and I clamp down. And then when I let go, the only thing I do is listen and feel where that energy goes. And so
you don't send it up to the pineal gland or anywhere. Keep it in your torso?
No, I just let it have its way.
Okay.
I just, because I learned when I had the interaction with the fractal, I had pushed my heart center under my armpit because of hurt and trauma. And so when that fractal blew up my heart, it took my heart center and brought it back to the center. So I think there's wisdom in, I'm not aiming it towards my pineal gland. I'm just letting it show me where I have density and where I have, like a nest of energy stuck. And so I just, I know a thimble. I've traveled through a lot of portals and seen a lot of things, and I don't even know a thimbleful of what there is to discover. And so I just believe in divine order and divine intelligence. And if I'm just doing my part, that energy will do its part. And so I just clamp down, and then I allow it to have its way. And then my last 5 to 10 minutes, I lay down on the ground and I integrate. I don't go to sleep. I just integrate. And that's a lot of times when I'll have things. But now that I'm further down the road, I can be in my car driving down the road, and I'll have someone hop in the car with me, and we'll have a conversation with my eyes open. Or
wow. It's amazing. Okay, I've got another question. Do you now find it easy to become nothing in nowhere in no time, as no one, etc.? And is that where you have experiences with beings or the happenings outside of meditations now? Okay, so we kind of discussed that already. But the first part,
I always go as myself. I was going to say, I always go as myself. Like I don't, for me, I can't be no one. No, I can't go into the void. I was never able to do that. Finally, when I was like, okay, I can't go into the void. I can't see the darkness. God, or I was led to just pretend you have a black napkin, or a cloth in front of your face. For me, the void didn't work because I am me. So I just go with me. I go as myself. I'm dressed up in my Halloween costume, and the Halloween costume is me. So I'm me, whether I'm with a blue being or a leprechaun or a stink bug or whatever it is. I'm just me. Now, that's not that way for everyone, but that's just what works for me. I'm me.
So that's really interesting. You don't go to this nothing, nowhere. You don't realize, there's no Nootsie there. There's just blackness or space, or never. Okay, that's very interesting.
I think because I was always so afraid of the dark. Like I was I had like a really afraid of the dark that, it just didn't work for me. I'm like, I'm not going in there. I know like stuff used to live in my closet and under bed. I'm not going into the dark. And so, I just think wherever you are, there you are. And, there's no one right way. We're all beautiful expressions of that divine spark. And you just have to find your way, and you have to let go of what we feel like is the right way.
Yeah, I love that.
I have a quick question, Nootsie. So, by the way, that's a beautiful testimonials, and thank you for sharing your story. And I remember watching your testimonials on YouTube a few months ago at this stage, and it was very special. So thank you for sharing it with us live. I have a quick question. So do you not meditate with Dr. Joe guided meditations at all right now? Is that the kind of like that would be my understanding per what you were saying earlier?
Yeah. And, like I am so thankful that is my foundation, but because of my bend to want right and wrong rules, like I want to know, like you tell me like how I need to do this, and then I'm going to do that because that's my bend, and all that had to be broken off. What was happening to me, because I was like, Dr. Joe says that, I'm doing it. If he told me to swim through shark infested waters, I'm doing it. And so because, I was putting this work where the Bible was, I just, I had that hole left that when I would get guidance, my own guidance from my higher self, it would sound like Dr. Joe. And when I would feel like I would connect into the divine, it would be Dr. Joe's voice. And so I had this vision, and Dr. Joe was sitting on the top of Hoover Dam, and he let down this ladder, and I climbed up the ladder. I mean, it was a long way, and it was a rope ladder, and I was scared. So I climbed up this ladder, and I got to the top of the Hoover Dam, and he was like, "You got this." And he pushed me down the other side, and I slid down the other side. And I won't go into what happened then, but I knew that, like, Dr. Joe is not wanting people to be little Dr. Joes. He's wanting us to be free moral agents who, are an expression of the divine and who find their own way. And so, I'm so thankful for this work and what has happened to me, but I know that I needed my higher self to be the guiding light, and my love and connection to the divine to be my guiding light.
I agree.
That's beautiful and interesting, because and when you mention about the breath, because I now tend to do the breath multiple times a day, and I'm noticing a huge shift in, like you said, my own guidance in a way. So yeah, no, very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
We have some more questions. How do you relate the cause to your body condition? Do you see it in your meditations, or is there more to that?
How do I see the what? I missed that part.
The cause of your body condition. The reason for why you were ill, do you see it in your meditations? I think you've spoken to that a little bit with the sort of.
Yeah. So if, let's just say that you had a splinter in your finger, and that splinter was just bothering you, and you just kept looking at that splinter. You're like, I need to get that splinter out. And then you walk outside and you step on the barbed wire fence, and you get a hole in the bottom of your foot. You're not even thinking about the splinter. You're thinking about the hole from the barbed wire fence in the bottom of your foot. And let's say that you walk a little bit farther and you're holding a gun and you shoot your big toe off on your other foot. You're not thinking about the hole in the barbed wire fence. You're not thinking about the splinter. You're only thinking about the gunshot wound. And so I know from just my studies that the body heals on a priority basis. And if I do my part, which is to change my vibration, to hook into the divine, to, follow my guidance, and to brood over what I'm trying to create in my life, I will heal in the manner in which I need to heal. And, I didn't ever ask for my colon to be healed. I just asked to connect into divinity, because if I connect into divinity is perfect. A blooming flower is perfect. A robin is perfect. A blade of grass, we all know how to be these versions of ourselves that are beautiful. And if I can connect into that intelligence, then healing will take place, as it needs to. So that's why I really listen to when I do the breath work. And that's how I knew, there was still something going on. And it wasn't in my kidneys, but I knew it was like something in my second and third center. Like I would just send energy there and send energy there and send energy there, send energy there. And then it would subside, and then it would come back. And so that's why I think just becoming aware and in tune with your own physiology is the best way to get your healing, and let the body heal on a priority basis. Did that answer it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rohini. So we have another question from Philomela. Would you be comfortable to share some of the learnings and experiences from traveling through the portals? Only if happy and comfortable to do so, as I appreciate this is very personal and intimate journey.
Yeah. So like The Matrix is one of my favorite movies, but I didn't think it was real. And I think there's always a version of truth from the lowest common denominator to the highest common denominator. Like, just like no one is all bad or all good. Like so truth is relative. To the pure in heart, all things are pure. To the defile, all things are defiled. So, the portal that I have, well, let me tell you how it happened. So I climbed up the DNA ladder and I was standing on the platform and they said, we're going to take you to the Matrix. And so we went down, it was like a water slide tunnel. So we went down this tunnel of light and all around me was pollution. I could see distorted faces. It had bad smells. It was a very low vibrational journey to get up above the matrix of light. Now, I don't know if there's a lower matrix. I only saw the matrix of light. And what my understanding is that the pyramids, they're discovering all these pyramids. The pyramids, wherever those pyramids are, were like hooking up the matrix of light, and it covered the earth literally like a light grid. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it became no longer where they communicated. Now what's happening is that people are coming online and the people are becoming the pyramids and the points of light. Like, I had an experience with a Merkaba before I even knew what it was, my own Merkaba. And so when we connect in a group like this, we are the matrix of light. Right now, we are connecting as a light grid that covers the earth. And so I was like, this is so cool. And so I popped up out of the matrix and my thought was, well, this isn't like the movie. I fell down to the ground and hit the ground like Neo in the movie Matrix. And I was like, shoot, I don't want that. So I jumped back up and I started to connect with people that some have passed on and some are still here. And as we did that, it's like we created this shield over the earth and we were all functioning on a different timeline. That's the only way I can explain it. And then I started to travel through portals to like different dimensions. Like I would meet different dimensional beings. And I had one experience where God said, I'm going to devour you. And I was like, hee, because I have inappropriate laughing. I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm game. And I just kind of forgot about it. And several weeks later, I literally, like, somebody pulled the chute and I traveled through this. It was like a gelatinous, water-filled portal. And I ended up in a womb of God, not the womb of God, but a womb of God. It was almost like what you see a cell under a microscope looks like. I ended up like that in that. And I'm like, am I a cell on the shoulder of the galactic giant? Like, ha, ha, ha. And so I was swaddled in this cell and I was surrounded by love, frequency, vibration, song, color. And it melted like the construct of me having to protect myself from being wounded. And, it just, I'm not there all the time. I get to be there sometimes, but there is a place that is above low vibration and high vibration. There's a place that's above wrong and right and good and bad. There is a place where there is no judgment even. And, there's a place where there's no time. There's no, there's infinite possibilities and there's no time. I did meet Father Time at one point, but I was swaddled in this substance of love that it made me realize like the 99.99999% of us, that space is love. That is truly who we are.
Right. So you can't say I met Father Time and just leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm watching you.
Okay. So I'll try to make it quick. So I was thinking a lot about time, you know, like Dr. Joe does that timeline, you know, where it's linear and then he flips it up and he's like, now is past and past is now and future is now. And so I would just think about that a lot. And I'm like, that is so mind bending. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I was just asking God, like, help me understand this concept of time if there is no time, you know, and I would think a lot about what Dr. Joe said, like, you know, when you're bored, time is like an eternity. And when you're having fun, time is really, really, really quick. And so I began to understand that it's kind of like an accordion. Mm-hmm. And I heard this, I will say, this angelic counsel say, what do you think Father Time looks like? And I was like, I don't know. Like, and so I thought I'll Google it. I'm going to Google it. So I Googled it and it was this, you know, crepit old gray haired guy with a Franciscan robe on and a long beard and holding a staff, and his belt is a chain with a stopwatch on the end of it. And I'm like, that's pretty much what I think Father Time looks like. And then the voice said, do you want to see what he really looks like? And I'm like, hell yeah, I do. Well, he looked like a combination of, because God uses our imagination, right? So I surrender my imagination every day, and I ask for the screen of my imagination to be cleansed. I don't want to imagine bad things. So that's just a continual prayer of mine. So Father Time came to me and he looked like part the Marvel character, you know, who does the gate, and part Black Panther guy. He had muscles upon muscles upon muscles upon muscles. And he began to explain to me that we are not controlled by time if our thought doesn't dictate that. That doesn't have to be the narrative of our life. Mm-hmm. And that's why, you know, when you have mystical experiences, and I might only be integrating for 10 minutes, but I've lived a month's worth of traveling in other dimensions. Or, you know, when life is really, really hard, every day seems like a month. So that if I can move my vibration to a different level of Father Time, of this dispensation of time, who's a decrepit old guy, old geezer, and I can, you know, interact with that on a higher vibration, then we can begin to use that, because I feel like younger and more vital and more relevant and healthier than I did when I was in my 20s. And that's because I'm on a first name basis with Father Time.
So does that mean you do some kind of routine, like a mental rehearsal for this vibe?
What I do is I have a notebook, and I don't have it here with me. I went on Pinterest and I pinned like heavenly garden photos. And I had a page, my inner garden, and I snapshotted it and I printed it off and I put it in a notebook. I took a snapshot of some really killer looking women, you know, that are in their 50s who are youthful. Yeah, I took a picture of a bunch of those and I put it in my notebook. I have a picture of a woman who's part butterfly and part woman, and she's like this, and her wings are behind her. Screenshotted, I put it in my notebook. So when I drive down the road and I get lost in my thought and I look over, there's a picture of that. And so, yeah, so I don't do it per se, but I have incorporated that in the construct of my narrative that I talk to myself and I brainwash myself.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's very, very cool. Okay, we have a question that I did miss. You don't go to Dr. Joe's events anymore, but when you did have your first mind body blown experience, did you talk to Dr. Joe about it at the event?
No, like I was so fragile. I look back on myself, I was so fragile. And, like I would be first in line in the morning or whenever the meditation was, because I felt like I just needed to get on the end of a row, and I needed to have like space. And I made friends with people that, I would save them seats on either side of me so I could have someone that I knew. So I was super, super fragile. And, it was just a lot for me because I was super, super sick and super, super wounded. So yeah, I didn't talk to anybody, hardly.
Any more questions, everyone? Thank you. Let's see, that's so good.
I do have one thought that I would like to leave you with. And, I've had the pleasure and the honor of talking to thousands of people since my testimony has been out there. And the one thing that I will say is I am not special. I am not a one-off. I am not, it can happen for anybody. Just the very fact that we're, in the womb of Mother Earth, and, we have spirit, soul, and body, and we are these divine beings that are continually looked after and guided. And we all can have this super spidey senses and interactions with divine beings. And it's just overcoming what we hang on to make ourselves feel safe. And that's my biggest lesson is like, I didn't believe in aliens. I didn't believe in Kundalini. I didn't believe in meditation. I didn't believe in, there's a lot I didn't believe in and wouldn't probably have believed it if I hadn't not eaten for 2 years and went to a Dr. Joe event. And, I was so in a weakened state and so easily influenced. And I thank God for it because, if I can leave you with anything, the very fact that you want to have a mystical experience is you can take it to the bank that you are headed straight long, smack dab, going to run into a mystical experience. And it's all about overcoming yourself. If I don't want to get up in the morning, I get up. If I don't want to stay up at night, I stay up. If I don't want to eat meat, I eat meat. If I don't want to, whatever it is, I just make myself live just a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I don't surround myself with rules and regulations and a rigidity that keeps out infinite possibilities of who we can become.
Just absorbing that. I think we all are just absorbing what you're saying.
I just want to say, as an avid gardener and lover of plants and trees and everything like that, I just love that story because I go out in the mornings and that's the first thing. I make my coffee, I go out and I just, oh, you're looking beautiful this morning. And I just talk to all of my plants. So it's nice to know that maybe there's some magical beings running around that I can't see yet, but that are there. So I love that story.
So this is not the first time I've heard this kind of story. I heard somebody else does the same thing, talking to the trees and the plants. So in terms of synchronicities, it's all there.
Yeah.
And how it started with me is voices first, I started seeing I would be walking and it wouldn't be windy, but one tree would be going like this. And I'd be like, hey, how you doing? And it started like that. And then, as I would notice that, and sometimes where they would prune a tree, it would be like two eyes. And I'd be like, I'm looking at you too. Like I just started it's a treasure hunt for me. Like, it's so exciting. because the unseen is more real than the seen, and it is literally singing a song and groaning and inviting you to animate it and to commune with you.
Well, I've got so much appreciation for you. You're amazing, so inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing. Loads of thank yous, loads of I love yous. Dimple saying we need to be open to surrender. Marielle is asking, what language do you talk to the beings? And thank you for sharing your amazing experiences. Because I know some people have like light language, and I don't know if you do that, or if it more of an inner communication.
I'm never just like light language is something that happened to me in my 20s, and I would speak in my light language and then I would get the interpretation of it. But for me, you know, it's a combination of visions, and then I'll brood on it and I'll get an explanation. Like I had this one vision of where I was in this closet and it was bricked. The whole thing was bricked. And I was like, well, how the heck am I going to get out of here? And so I was looking for like those little metal spikes out of that on a telephone pole. So I was running my hands, like trying to find, like, there's got to be like, maybe they're going to let a ladder down. Maybe I'll find those spikes. And I realized that it was a facade. It was like these little, how checks used to come in boxes. It was all of those, and they were painted to look like a brick wall, and I could just do that, and they would go out of the way, and then they let a ladder down, and I climbed up the ladder, and I was like, okay, God, like what? Like that is so weird. I was in a closet that looked like a brick wall, and it was check boxes, and this voice said, stop always checking the boxes. I was like, oh, I get it. So, you know, sometimes they don't come at the same time. Yeah. Sometimes I'll get a vision, and sometimes I'll hear things. So just be open to whatever it is.
But the main thing is start, right? People don't start. They're like, okay, I'm not going to do it today or whatever. You have to make that effort, and you have to take action for any of this to happen. You can't just sit on your laurels and wait something to come to you.
Like, here's an example. My mom loved owls. And so anytime I have an encounter with an owl, I see her too, and I have talked to her too, but every time and I'll have a close encounter of the special kind with an owl, I know my mom is doing that. And so like when I'll have times where I just am feeling like I miss her or whatever, and I'll have like a blue jay come across my path, I'll be like, Mom, one bird closer to having an interaction from you. So whatever happens, I count it all joy and good news.
Yes. If in doubt, cheat. Okay. Do you plan to write a book, a manual?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm doing I don't know. I don't know.
I just wanted to contribute, if I may, Mona.
Yeah.
It's Dimple.
Hiya.
Hi, Nootsie. Thank you so much for an incredible journey of showing us your experience, your visions, your truth, and also your courage, your absolute courage to be open to surrendering, because that's really, for me, what I witnessed. That's what it takes, courage to actually decide that it's possible. It's truly possible for everybody, including yourself. So thank you for that. And I wanted to add that for me, certainly, when people ask me, it's not what I see with these eyes, because it's not that kind of vision. For me, it's a very different vision that's very freeing and opening, as opposed to, and I wanted to add this piece, because until I started seeing, I assumed it was seeing with these eyes, and it isn't. And I assumed it was hearing with these ears, and it isn't, right? And so for me, certainly that's the experience. So thank you for your contribution today. And Yeah, it's magical. I appreciate you. I love you.
Love you too.
Nootsie does see with these eyes, though. So,
And you know what? Like you've heard of the clairs, like clairvoyant, clairaudient.
Mm.
So I just started making friends with Claire. I'm like, Claire, Claire, my friend, like, let's chat. Like, I want to see you. I want to know you. I want to smell you. I want to be acquainted with you. Like, can we be friends? Like, Claire, let me be your buddy. And so, and it has transitioned to where it can be with my eyes open. It can be with my eyes closed. It can be, I just take off the limits. Anything is possible. Infinite possibilities.
And that's what I mean when I say not seeing with these eyes. It is possible to see them with your eyes open. It's a different vision is what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily. And so, yeah, I see with my eyes open. It's just a different vision to the physical vision that we're used to seeing. Thank you for the clarification, Mona.
Well, you know what? If you want it, you can have it. If you desire it, it is trying to find you and trying to get an in with you harder than you are trying to allow it. Just know that you can't out give or out effort divine consciousness.
So they're saying what you're seeking is seeking you. Are there any more questions? I can't see any in the...
Could I just ask? Sorry. I'm just wondering what your vision of the future is, what you're hoping to achieve with all this knowledge that you have now gained. And you're so inspirational talking to you or listening to you. And you've got such a drive, such a vital energy for life. I just see that you're going to have to do something with it, in a big way.
Well, the more that I get to know my authentic self, the more opportunities present themselves. And, I used to be my own frenemy, my own friend and enemy. And now I just want to be my own friend. And I want to be the best version of myself and, just be connected to the divine. And then all of that will unfold because I couldn't see my future from where I was because I was bogged down in the mire of my past. And so, I don't know. I just feel like there's infinite possibilities.
Yeah. No, I just wondered when you're visualizing your future, because you're now seeing and so aware of so many possibilities, it's even harder to even imagine what you want, if you see what I mean.
It is. It is.
So, and you're including the divas, you're including multi-dimensions. I don't know how you live in your day, really, when you're aware of so many other things going on all the time.
Do you know the Verizon network commercial? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Like we had the group of people. That's literally, I used to be very lonely. I was very, very lonely my entire life. And now I know I have like the Verizon network. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
All right. Thank you.
So guys, what you're doing, the 23 hours of your day, Nootsie is like a prime example of where you can be. One last question, because I'm conscious that I've taken already almost 2 hours of your time today. Have you ever been scared? If you have, how did you deal with it or snap out of it?
I've been scared a lot. Like, some of these things I'm like, oh my God, like this is not good. But I remember what Dr. Joe said and what he teaches, that what the experience that you have in your body is what you name it. So there is no difference between excitement and anxiety. It's what you name it. And so I just was like, I've been afraid my entire life. And I'm not going to, I am naming it excitement. I am not naming it fear and anxiety and worry. It's excitement. And I raise the vibration of it. It's the same energy. It's just on the scale. Where is it on the scale? I choose to call it excitement and not plummet down. I call it ditch diving. I'm not going to dive in the ditch in the fear and roll around in the mud. I'm climbing the ladder and it's excitement.
Okay, one last question. Can we stay on this call forever?
Thank you.
Oh, that was really, really good. I did tell you all before we came on that this is going to be really good, and I'm sure you can see that it was. Thank you, Nootsie, so much for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your evening to join us as well. It was lovely. Thank you. Have an amazing day.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to people who are, on the same path, and just be encouraged. You are running right into the mystical.
Thank you, Mona. So appreciate you as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay, everybody, have an amazing day wherever you are, and see you in the morning, 5 o'clock.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.